Welcome to a webcast produced by the Learning Enhancement team based in the Dean of Students office at the University of East Anglia. This is a fact sheet about mathematical inverses. When rearranging equations, it is useful to know about the mathematical operations and their inverses. See Study Guide, Rearranging Equations. The following table lists some of the most common examples. Of course, there are many more, and keeping a list handy with your notes is a good idea. The inverse of the operation of adding is subtracting. For example, A plus B equals C implies that A equals C minus B. The inverse of the operation of subtracting is adding. For example, A minus B equals C implies that A equals C plus B. The inverse of the operation of multiplying is dividing. For example, A multiplied by B equals C implies that A equals C divided by B. The inverse of the operation of dividing is multiplying. For example, A divided by B equals C implies that A equals B multiplied by C. The inverse of reciprocal, which turns a fraction upside down, is itself reciprocal, turning the fraction upside down. For example, A divided by B equals C divided by D implies that B divided by A equals D divided by C. The inverse of the operation multiply by minus 1 is multiply by minus 1. For example, minus A equals B implies that A equals minus B. The inverse of the operation of squaring is square rooting. For example, A squared equals B implies that A equals plus or minus the square root of B. The inverse of the operation of square rooting is squaring. For example, A equals the square root of B implies that A squared equals B. The inverse of the operation exponential, base E, is natural logarithm. For example, e to the power A equals B implies that A equals the natural logarithm of B. The inverse of the operation natural logarithm is exponential base E. For example, the natural log of A equals B implies that A equals e to the power B. The inverse of the operation sine is inverse sine. For example, sine of A equals B implies that A equals the inverse sine of B. The inverse of the operation cosine is inverse cosine. For example, cos of A equals B implies that A equals the inverse cosine of B. The inverse of the operation of tangent is inverse tangent. For example, tan A equals B implies that A equals the inverse tan of B. Further guidance and information. If you have any further questions about algebra or would like to discuss any other aspects of mathematics, you can talk to your lecturer or personal advisor, or make an appointment to see a Learning Enhancement tutor in the Dean of Students office. You can telephone 01603 592761, email dos.help@uea.ac.uk, or visit our website at www.uea.ac.uk/dos/let. There are further resources on many other aspects of numeracy, mathematics, statistics and science available from the Dean of Students Office and on its website. These include questions to practice, model solutions and webcasts illustrating essential skills. This guidance is one of a series on mathematics produced by the Dean of Students Office at the University of East Anglia.